Mr. Ronesh Dhawraj, and of course beside me, Dinilohlanga Mekuto, who is our digital reporter. Very good morning to all of you gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Alicia.
All right, now let's have a look at what made people talk on social media. Danny, that is why you're sitting right next to me. Mr. Tselane, I know you can't really say much, but we want to hear your comments regardless of what you thought on some of the tweets that have been coming through. Danny, what was the top and leading story this week in social media?
Well, this week it was the EFF councillor, Mr. Thabo Maboja, who happened to post a seemingly racist tweet on Facebook, and the electoral court took that matter, and as we know now, the man is no longer standing as a councillor of the EFF. So that racist issue, and there was also the issue of the NFP not being able to participate in these upcoming elections on Wednesday. So those were the issues that really stood out this week.
Gentlemen, what did you think in terms of research, Ronesh? What happened there?
I think the big story for me was the NFP one. You know, obviously the NFP approached the electoral court the first time. It lost its case. Then it approached another court. Then it went back to the electoral court. And, you know, we kind of knew that the NFP's chances were very slim because they were trying to contest municipalities in KZN, you know, and we have a huge number of municipalities in KZN. You know, I always cite the example of the ACDP back in 2006. They were shut out of the local elections in that year in the Cape Town Metro, so it was just a single council. What the ACDP did back then, they approached the electoral court. Eventually they lost the electoral court case. Then they went to the Con Court. They won their case, and you know, obviously they were allowed to take part in those elections. But I think with the NFP it was a very, very different scenario, because remember, they registered here in Gauteng. They've got lots of supporters in Gauteng. But I think the real dilemma for the IEC would have been KZN, because KZN has lots of local and district municipalities. So to include the NFP on 3 ballots on the ward, you know, a different ward ballot for each municipality, then we got the district councils as well. I think it would have been a totally logistical nightmare for the IEC.
Mr. Tselane, what did you think? Was there nothing brought forward to the Directorate according to what you saw on social media trends this week?
Well, the 2 issues that you have referred to, which is the matter relating to the NFP as well as the EFF candidate in Tshwane, are matters that obviously were dealt with by the Commission. And in relation to the matter related to the NFP, we indicated from the outset that we derive no pleasure in the NFP being disqualified. But from our side, we had to apply the rules, and the rules state that political party must meet certain minimum requirements in order for that party to comply with our requirements. And unfortunately, NFP did not comply. But we are satisfied that the leadership of the NFP has actually been explaining to their members and supporters, and that the issue is being dealt with in a very responsible way. The matter also of the EFF, the leadership of the EFF also distanced itself from the candidate and indicated their support for the electoral laws, particularly the Code of Conduct. And I think it's a positive thing, and I think most of the political parties can actually learn from the steps taken by the EFF in relation to this matter.
Thank you so much for that. Dini, what else was big news in terms of campaigning and social media this week?
Not necessarily this week, Alicia, but throughout the campaigns, we noticed that the 3 big parties in the country, namely the ANC, the DA and the EFF, took onto social media in a big way. And people took the stories that were on mainstream media or traditional media and started talking about them on social media. And one of the things that caught people's attention was the dabbing. And dabbing is a new dance move. I'm sure if you're a young person, you know about it, or if you're a follower of the ruling party, you know about it, because they really took onto that one.
There's
and
the president dabbing there.
Dabbing there, and they are dabbing to victory. That's what they are saying. Dabbing to Siyangoba, which we know is happening today. And there was also the issue of racism, with the DA and the ANC really engaging or, you know, having public spats on this issue, with the president saying a party of snakes could never really give birth to something holy or something innocent.
What were the tweets saying there, Dean? If you can just give us very quickly.
A couple of tweets that we had.
Yes.
So this one is from one of our reporters, Mahlatse Gallens. She says, Zuma says DA is like apartheid architects, NP, and that's a snake. Or how can we expect a snake to give birth and not, what does it say? Over this week,
10,000 posters saying Honor Madiba's dream vote DA will go up across South Africa.
okay, that's another story that the DA was engaging on, the issue of Mandela. And we also know that the Mandela family came out with Mandla saying Mandela is a person of the ANC and not a person of the DA. And there's also an ANC member who also engaged on this issue on social media, Hesetu Hassane, who actually quoted Mandela from an article that was written in 2000.
What did he say?
So this article says, former President Nelson Mandela on Saturday labeled the Democratic Alliance a party of white bosses and black stooges, which only cared for black voters on the eve of the election. Speaking at the Congress of COSATU, this is what Mandela had said then. So this is just saying that the ANC can lay claim to the name Mandela, and having the DA use the name of Mandela in their campaigning is not what Mandela would have been happy with, because Mandela had his own reservations about the Democratic Alliance. And people started engaging on that. And there was a very interesting tweet from a person called Will African, who seems to be on the fence of this issue on racism. And he also quoted both parties, saying, Zuma has a point. I also don't understand black people who vote for the DA. But with equal sentiment, it's beyond me how black people vote for the ANC. So had his reservations about both parties. But what was interesting is that a lot of these parties never really took this issue of racism up and really engaged in it. But people were actually talking about it on social media, which is maybe something that the political parties can look at and find a solution to this racism. As we can see with the EFF Councillor Mabotja this week. He also posted a racist Facebook post. But fortunately, the IC managed to deal with that one decisively.
Mr. Tselane, I mean, it's very interesting how now, campaigning has reached far beyond just parties going on the ground. It's also on social media. Does the IEC monitor that as well? What is being said on social media?
There's no regulation for social media, as you may be aware. We had conversation with the ICASA sometime last week, and then we were trying to find out as to whether they've got measures and mechanisms to deal with social media and its impact. And they also indicated that they have not actually looked into this particular issue that seriously, but they also are not empowered in law to regulate social media. So we of course are also in social media as an organization, and we believe that it's an important platform that we're using to reach out particularly to the young people. But that is the extent to which we can go by using the platform, and then also obviously just looking at how people respond to a message in those platforms.
Ron, very quickly.
I just want to make a comment about the Madiba thing, the tussle between the ANC and the DA. Remember, this whole Mandela controversy with the DA did actually start now. You would recall just before the 2014 elections, the DA launched with much fanfare on Twitter, on Facebook, Know Your DA campaign.
Yes. And
they had posters, they had tweets, they had pictures of Nelson Mandela embracing Helen Suzman from the Democratic Party, from the Progressive Party, in those days. And, obviously the ANC, was very vocal at the time as well. But I think also you've got to remember that Nelson Mandela is and was a global icon. So the appropriation of the Mandela name, despite the protest from the ANC, despite the protest from Winnie Madikizela Mandela this morning and the family, Nelson Mandela is a global icon. And, this whole issue of the apartheid linking with the DA as well, you also got to remember that the ANC was the party that actually absorbed the National Party, and it rewarded, Martinus van Schalkwyk for that constituency that was brought into the ANC fold back in the early 2000s. So there is a bit of contradiction between the ANC and the DA. So there's, this kind of tussle that's going on. Obviously, it's politics as well. So I think when we're framing the story, we got to remember all these factors.
Dini?
Well, an important thing to note is that whenever you're on social media, you must also keep in mind that it's a public platform.
Absolutely.
So even though some people might have views that are private, taking it to a public platform might put you in a compromising situation, as we have seen with the EFF councillor. So people must always know that even if you put something and delete it, someone might have screen grabbed it, and it might be around for years to come. So just watch your conduct and just behave properly on
And
social
very
media.
importantly, don't tweet, don't message when you're very emotional. Just keep away.
All right, that's where we're going to leave it on this discussion. We're going to take a quick ad break, and when we return, we're going to cross live to our report.